Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on First Sports. Today, Currie Cup Round 2 review. I'm going to make a very big call. I reckon this is going to be the best Currie Cup we've seen in about the past decade. Huge call, massive. But I have never seen first 2 rounds of Currie Cup, and yes, I know that there are no Springboks. I know that Cheetahs are in the middle of an injury crisis. I know the Western Province also had lots of injuries. I know the Lions have got lots of injuries, but I have never seen a first 2 rounds of the Currie Cup played where the teams have been so even. It's been a fantastic watch, and I give a lot of credit to that to the Pumas, who, after outclassing the Lions in the first round, gave a very good Bulls side a very good run for their money. And I think that we are finally seeing a bit of sort of equilibrium across these sides, what we've been calling for. Because unfortunately, during the sort of Super Rugby Unlocked and Currie Cup that we saw at the beginning of the year / end of last year, it was just very, very one-sided at the end of the day. You know, it was very much, top 4 sides just beating everybody else kind of for fun. But this first 2 rounds, and yes, the Cheetahs have only played 1 game and they had a lot of injuries, and the Sharks only played 1 game, but it's looked really, really good. And I think, the Bulls versus the Pumas match on Friday was probably one of the best Currie Cup matches I've seen in a very, very long time. Both teams just, having a go at each other, playing some nice enterprising rugby, not too many mistakes. The standard of rugby in this country is definitely on the up from what we saw after COVID, which was inevitable. It was inevitable, but we said it during the Rainbow Cup that it's getting better, and this last sort of week and a half really of Currie Cup action has been really, really good to watch. To see the Lions respond like that, even though they did their best to throw it away against the Western Province, they looked really good for a large part of that game. And that's a Lions side with a lot of injuries. It's the Western Province side with a lot of injuries. We're seeing some very nice players being uncovered, but the Bulls responded well and beat the Pumas with a bonus point, but they look vulnerable, and I think that's a good thing for SA Rugby in terms of the product of the Currie Cup, in terms of making it exciting. The fact that people are looking at this Bulls side and thinking, you know what, you're actually not all that. And that doesn't mean that the Bulls are worse than they were. It doesn't mean that they're going to be not bad. But you kind of lose that aura. Benetton have gone and beaten them. They've come back and struggled against Pumas. They lost their first game. Obviously, it was a club team really. They was playing against the Western Province, but they've got work to do. So I still think that the Bulls are probably the favourites in the Currie Cup. But it's a really, really good start to the tournament. I'm really, really hopeful that it can continue to be that good, because it's been a fantastic watch. And as I said, I think I've been very impressed with the Griquas and the Pumas, who are kind of your weaker teams, who've actually looked pretty good. The Griquas, were very deserving of their victory against the Cheetahs. It took a while to sort of break them down, but there's some nice players in that Griquas side, and it's good to see that some of these players are sort of standing up. At the end of the day, with the United Rugby Championship towards the end of the year, a lot of these players need to try and sort of audition themselves and put themselves in the shop window and say, you know what, if you guys look at expanding your squads, I'm ready. I can go and play against some of the best in Europe. I'm ready for the standard. I think, someone like Edwin Cates played very well. For the Pumas, we're seeing people like Willie Engelbrecht, Eddie Forsheer played very well. Etienne Talia looks quite a good player. There's a lot of players who are starting to step up, and it's very, very good for the country. And I think, whilst we've had a big generation of players going overseas, and we saw that in like the big South African contingent especially in the Premiership final, for example, where the Harlequins beat Exeter, but also, 4 South Africans in the top 14 final. So we've got a lot of South Africans overseas, and I think that hopefully the plan is, with the United Rugby Championship, is to try and keep more players in the country. I think it's good that we've got players playing in Europe. I think it's very nice to have that experience, and I think it pays a lot. But I think the fact that now we will be playing in Europe more as local sides, hopefully that means a bit of a financial injection. They might have to start relooking at that 60 million rand salary cap and start maybe, trying to keep more players down in the country. And hopefully, with various ways, we can do that, because I want to see a Currie Cup be a competitive Currie Cup. I think the Currie Cup's lost a lot of its shine, a lot of its sort of, it's just not quite the same, is it? Because it hasn't been as competitive, and it's kind of become a little bit of a fringe tournament with, fringe players, youngsters and stuff like that. And it is still to a large degree with the Springboks currently playing, and they kind of need to relook at the schedule. I'll be very interested to see how they sort of manage it in the coming years. But so far, we've seen a very good product. We've seen very nice rugby. We've seen some very good performances. We've seen some very nice youngsters come up. And it looks competitive. And I think that's the main thing. At the moment, apart from the Cheetahs, there are six teams with, 2 points separating them. And yes, it's only two rounds of what will be about, like 12 rounds, I think. They've got a lot of rugby still to play. But it just gives me a good feeling. I just think that we're in for a good competition, because I think that with the Springboks having left, it's balanced the teams quite nicely, and sort of leveled the playing field. But if we look at the log itself, it's Western Province currently topping it with 7 points from their two first games against the Lions and the Bulls. It was a Bulls' weaker side, but and they almost managed to get past the Lions. But I think that in normal circumstances, if it wasn't for the Bulls going overseas, Western Province probably would have been quite happy with 7 points in the first two games. I think they've still got a lot to do. I think there's some worrying signs in that province side. I think that they probably should have put in better performance against both those sides. But the Pumas on second place, very, very rightfully in second place. 6 points from their first two games, and they've deserved those 6 points. Been very, very impressive, have the Pumas, and getting a bonus point against the Bulls is also impressive. They've got a point difference of 24, the highest in the competition at the moment. So credit to them because they've been very, very good. And the Bulls currently sitting in third place after their bonus point victory. They're also sitting on 6 points. And then the Sharks, Griquas, and Lions all sitting on 5 points after bonus point victories. The Sharks only having played one game, and the Griquas getting their bonus point victory over the Cheetahs. Cheetahs sitting in Stonehead last after just one game. They've got a minus 21 points difference and 0 points. But I'll try and rectify that very soon when they can get more players back into their side. But as I said, I hope that it continues to be this competitive because, first of all, I think we've seen some good rugby, and that's the main thing. I think we've seen some nice players coming up from the Varsity Cup coming into these sides. I think probably the Griquas Cheetahs game was probably the worst game we've seen, but I think that kind of makes sense, and the Cheetahs being very injury affected at the moment, their first game. But, the Pumas have had two very good performances. The Lions looked a lot better in their second game. The Griquas have looked pretty good in both their games, to be honest. And the Bulls looked better, a bit rusty. And you can understand a lot of traveling and stuff like that. So I think they'll soon sort of be able to get back to their processes and look a lot better. But long may this continue because we're seeing some nice players coming up in the Currie Cup. And that's kind of what it's about. It's about making sure this competition unearths players, first of all. But also it needs to be competitive. We need to have a high level of players playing. Ideally you want to have, a lot of Springboks being part of it. But, we've still got some quality players. And I think that's the main thing. You still, when all the teams get their full contingents back, you're still going to have a Seekan Wazanoche playing Currie Cup rugby. You're still going to have Warwick Gelant back playing for the Western Province. You're going to have Marcel Coetzee, Cornwall Hendricks playing at the Bulls. You're going to have Jaco Creel, Carlos Sardi at the Lions. So we've still got some star quality in the Currie Cup. You're still going to have some very good players playing. But it still does look like a very nice competitive environment. And I think the Pumas, hopefully they can continue being competitive because I think that's what we're seeing with the Pumas, what we kind of want to see from these teams. It's a 7-team competition. We want to try and push that to 8. We want to try and push that to 10. Let's try and get to a situation, instead of having 7 teams and you're playing a double round, get 10 teams and play a single round. But there's 10 teams need to be competitive. So, with the Varsity Cup structure and stuff like that, let's try and build the EP Kings. Let's try and build a Boerland or a Border or Leopards or whatever. Let's try and get these sides to being pretty good. So, you can have 2 weak sides. There will always be weaker sides in competitions. But let's have those 2 sides being, 9 and 10. And let's have 7 and 8 still being pretty competitive. Let's have 6 and 7 being very competitive. Let's you have to be quite very, very good to be the top 4. I think that's the main thing. And hopefully we're kind of on the road to getting there. But I've been very impressed with the standard of rugby so far in the first couple of rounds. I've really, really enjoyed the Currie Cup. And it's really good to get back into it because I think it's, as I said, for the last couple of years, it was always sort of happening, in awkward stages with, players going on sabbatical, lots of players going to Japan, and we've seen pretty much it almost came like a bit of an under-19 tournament. There was just so many youngsters in it that you didn't really know who was playing, you didn't recognize the players you were playing against. Now I think that we're getting a bit of a better sort of mold of that, and long may it continue because I've really enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of the first 2 rounds. Smash a like on the video, do subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Stephen, I'll chat to you very soon.